is that everyone needs to implement the global social distancing measures and safety and health procedures for the whole complex tourism value chain for all related businesses. I'm going to be very short on EBRD since I think most of you know us. If not, I'm happy to answer some questions. We're active across the Middle East and Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union, over 38 countries. And we've been here in Jordan, so I've been here since day one, end of 2012. Globally, we have a broad portfolio in tourism and property, with 15% of our global exposure in the southern Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East, but a large share also still in Central Europe and the Baltics. And I think I will share some lessons also from other regions, in particular Croatia, which is a country where we invest a lot in tourism. So what have we done in to support our countries and our private and public sector counterparts during the pandemic? We expanded and we set up a big solidarity package that expands support for trade and is also a resilience framework that provides short-term financing for working capital for existing clients. But we also remained open for business to finance new companies throughout the crisis. We particularly focusing on small and medium enterprises, both with advice but also financing. And as you know, small and medium enterprises are the key ones in the tourism value chain. Our target is total financing for countries and companies that are affected by COVID-19 of 21 billion between 2020 and 2021. So what does it now mean, investments in the tourism sector during the crisis? I think partially, of course, we are reaching out to all our existing clients, for example, in Jordan to Ayla and others, to see if they need any help with the existing financing or need additional financing. We're looking at new clients, and we are looking to work with tourism ministries to support policy work, but also working with local banks to support even small companies in the tourism sector with very, very small financing requirements, where we do wholesale funding through local banks. And in Jordan, we have 6 of the local banks that we're working with. I think one thing that Mary greatly alluded to on the platform of recovery is really that it's a rare window of opportunity also to reflect reimagining and resetting of how we see sectors and potentially countries moving forward. So this is a quote, of course, from Klaus Schwab at the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset. So what are we looking at, which is, I think I love the SDGs at the back of Constanza's screen, and I think a number of our qualities are of course reflected. And so, but these are green, inclusive, resilient, integrated, competitive, and well-governed. And I think all of them are relevant for the tourism sector, but particularly green and inclusive, I think are ones that, you know, we want to strengthen right now to be ready for the tourism season as soon as it can commence. So green and inclusive, the environment matters, and we need to develop sustainable infrastructure, energy, and value chains to enable Jordan to meet really its green economy targets and benefit from the enormous natural resources in terms of sun and wind that Jordan has. Inclusive, it's a chance for upskilling, reskilling the labor force to support for Sector Skills Council, in particular in the tourism and hospitality sector. So what we focus on, I want to talk a minute about skills. So human capital development to support the Sector Skills Council for hospitality and tourism. So why are we doing it? Because upgrading the labor force is important to meet the needs of the market, to be flexible, resilient, and innovative. So the Sector Skills Council, which has a representation of all the key players, develops national occupational standards for priority occupations in the industry and helps train and develop training programs to meet these standards. We are now looking at virtual training materials, which are now more than ever important to make sure training and skills development continues through this crisis. So what have we done so far? So we are looking at really the standard operating procedures that I think Jordan has really been exceptionally at the forefront of developing these procedures for health and safety requirements in tourism. So these were issued formally to the Tourism Association and tourism enterprises in June. And now we have started working with local and international consultants with People First, training of trainers, so that these operating procedures and international best practices with compliance with COVID-19 health and safety measures can be rolled out. So these trainers will then train 1,000 focal points at each tourism enterprise over the coming months on a pro bono basis to make sure that the whole sector, the whole complex value chain is ready with the standard operating procedures for resuming tourism in this COVID-19 scenario. What are we doing also is work readiness. So as part of what we're doing with the Sector Skills Council is looking at what can we do in terms of work readiness measures. And we looked also at some other countries and training programs that are online available and localized them for the Jordan context. We're working with the TVET training providers, and the training program is free on the Sector Skills Jordan online website. So we've actually started this Monday, so I'm super pleased. So it's 3 days ago, we started with a certificate of work readiness for the tourism sector for health and safety measures. And we've already, in the last 3 days, we've already had 630 people in Jordan taking the course and starting the course, and over 450 certificates issued. So we aim at 15,000 employees across the tourism value chain to be trained and certified together, and certificate issued by the Ministry of Tourism and the Sector Skills Council, which represents all the private hotels, tour guides associations. So I think this is really the time where training matters most. Get ready, be trained, make sure that the training procedures are well understood so that once tourism resumes, this can actually commence immediately and everyone can start hitting the ground running. So if you look at the WTO COVID-19 tourism recovery package, because we've also, as we are one of the agencies that has partnered with the UN World Tourism Organization along 3 pillars: the economic recovery, the institutional strengthening and resilience building, and marketing and promotion. So under economic recovery, of course, it includes recovery plans, but also, as I mentioned, the protocols, the SOPs for hygiene and security for tourists, and the training for all government and private sector officials on awareness and adopting of the protocols. Then I think there's a lot of opportunities for capacity building for tourism officials to preserve the human capital in the industry. So strengthening inclusion, adapting COVID-19 reality on safety and hygiene. And then marketing and promotion. And I think there also UNESCO has done an enormous job in really taking everything digital. So really helping also on the marketing and promotion and on just showcasing a lot of the sites in a digital format. So this pillar is really around innovation, financially enabled support for the tourism industry in terms of marketing, and making sure that Jordan remains in our collective psyche, and all the sites that can be visited in Jordan remain alive during the time when still the travel is only allowed domestically, but still that we remain in everybody's conscience. So that's pillar 3. So how we are institutionalizing our cooperation and using our respective strength as a bank and the UN WTO. Of course, Jordan is a priority country. And so part of the training, we also will have more intensive trainings to inspection and certificate commitment will be delivered by UNWTO together with, of course, the Jordan Tourism Board and marketing and promotion, and including monitoring impact throughout the training, but also, of course, once tourism starts opening up. So I think there we have also more in-depth training manual that will start following the initial certification stage. And I think that's something that we've kicked off already and are really keen to roll out as fast as possible. This slide, I'm very nervous because Constanza is listening. But I think basically we have partnered and have, of course, looked a lot at what UNESCO has done in terms of how can we as a bank support cultural heritage and support the private sector in respecting cultural heritage, integrating the promotion of cultural heritage into development, and cooperating with public and private stakeholders to make sure the whole touristic ecosystem is revolving around cultural heritage sites, infrastructure, public services, including public services towards these sites, lightning transport, public transport accommodation, opportunities for visitors. So we've now signed an MOU with the Ministry of Tourism in February to look at a number of cultural heritage sites around and see what kind of private sector enterprises are in the vicinity and how can we support with training, financing, policy dialogue and capacity building. And so we're still in a scoping stage to make sure that we complement what, for example, UNESCO and other partners have been doing for such a long time and so comprehensively, to see where can our private sector expertise and our financing for private sector clients add benefit and value. So this is a new area for us, cultural heritage, but I think, and Jordan is one of the first countries where we are working on it, but I think we should not forget cultural heritage during the crisis. But again, it's a good time to prepare ourselves and make sure this holistic system is better aligned. So I think I wanted to really focus on what we can do together on green and inclusiveness, and particularly training and getting ready in terms of skills. So I think maybe if I want to leave you with these messages, that's sort of the background now from EBRD, and I'm very much looking forward for engaging with all of you on questions at the end of these presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Heike. A very comprehensive presentation. You gave us the vision, the opportunity, the overarching strategy into how EBRD is approaching these times of coronavirus. I liked your focus, your very, very practical focus on it's about skills, it's about training, it's about new ways of operation. What about the SOPs? How are we going to be functioning, and how are we assisting Jordan in this new normal? So thank you so much. I am sure a lot of colleagues here will have a lot of questions for you from this rich presentation. Let us now move to Constanza, please, before we have our interactive sessions. Constanza, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Mary. It was a pleasure to be with you, and I still have fantastic memory of when we collaborated in your capacity as a Minister of Planning International Cooperation. This was a dream. And Heike, fantastic presentation. You don't need to be nervous about collaborating with UNESCO. We have done that in the past, and we are doing extremely well. We actually welcome the stakeholders to work together. So I'm very pleased. Thank you to the organizers, the chairman, Omar. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, and I very much, like Heike, look forward to the debate after. So let me try to share my presentation now. Voila. Let's see if it works in a way which is... Do you see it well, or you see... Exactly. Now you should see it well, correct?
Yes, we see it very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So a lot actually has been said already by Mary and Heike. I'm glad that you touched upon a number of items I also will be touching upon, and this shows the convergence on key strategic orientations for the new normal. So I will focus a bit more on the culture sector in general, the impact of the pandemic on the cultural ecosystem, and I will also highlight how Jordan participated in global UNESCO initiatives in that, and also how we engaged here at the national level with the authorities. And then I will advocate in the possible strongest terms for building back better through sustainable development. This is my my motto now. So quickly, a lot has been said about the impact on tourism of the pandemic, but the profound impact on the entire cultural ecosystem is somehow neglected in the international discourse, and I think it deserves definitely more attention. We know that hundreds of World Heritage Sites have been closed, the postponement of cultural events, and the whole cycle of producing cultural assets has been disrupted. Museums have been closed, so they could not perform their education function, which is very important for the society. And of course, less revenues in tourism means also less budget for maintenance of cultural events or cultural infrastructure. So this impact has revealed a structural fragility of the cultural ecosystem, as was mentioned before, is largely made by individual workers in the informal sector, small medium-sized enterprises. So it was really vulnerable to this type of crisis. And just to refer to in Jordan, a few data, because Heike has covered globally, the Central Bank of Jordan has estimated 500 million revenues in January this year. So that's on the positive side, but has also estimated a total of 3 billion losses from January on if we entirely miss the spring and summer seasons. Hopefully not. Hopefully things will catch up soon, but otherwise the forecast is not positive. Obviously, this has an impact on unemployment. We have to remember the culture provides job opportunities to a number of workers. So I fully agree with what has been said before. We need to turn this crisis into an opportunity. There are opportunities always in any crisis. And I think this is the opportunity to look into how to sustain sustainable tourism in Jordan. Now, here I thought to give a quick overview of what UNESCO globally has or how UNESCO globally has organized and articulated the response to the crisis, and then highlight how Jordan has contributed. The 4 big bubbles that you see are the key corporate function of UNESCO. Mobilization, the first one, the blue one, is mobilization of international cooperation, high-level policy dialogue. There has been several ministerial high-level meetings online, and we see how Jordan has participated in that. A new movement has been launched, Resiliart, which is a movement to try to support artists and creative professionals so that they can go through the crisis. The second is awareness and advocacy campaign. That's also something that traditionally UNESCO does. There have been, of course, lots of social media. You see here, share culture, share our heritage. So it was like an attempt to mobilize particularly young people on that. And then there is also this issue about the COVID story, Youth of UNESCO, where a Jordanian participated, and I will elaborate a little bit after. The third bubble is the green one, provision of policy and technical support. And this I will say how, in terms of cultural heritage support, we work in the Amman office in Jordan in particular. And the fourth is also, the generation of data analysis, evidence-based analysis to support and inform policy development. And here there has been some studies and surveys about the impact on World Heritage Sites and on museums. So this is the first bubble. On the 22nd of April, there was a global meeting of ministers of education. His Excellency Dr. Twasey participated. There were more than 130 globally. And he made a very strong point in the sense that he wanted to highlight the interconnectedness between different countries and the necessity to pool efforts so that we can collectively realize the importance of culture and have a coordinated approach based on shared cultural values. This is the second bubble and on awareness and advocacy campaigns. And you see Abdallah Youssef, he's a Jordanian who participated in a training of UNESCO on civic engagement and youth leadership. And he got inspired and basically he started up an activities to turn old clothes into creative art pieces. So I thought it was a wonderful example of how creativity can really become visionary. And here you will see three pictures of these posting in social media that have taken place. This is the third bubble, the policy and technical support. This is really the core of what we do here in Jordan. I will spend a couple of minutes to describe what we do and how is our approach. So we try to, particularly in preservation of world heritage and cultural sites. So one stream of work is involving youth in conservation intervention in Petra and in minor cultural heritage sites. And this I'm referring to some sites in the north, in the Mafraq area, and Rehab, where there are fantastic mosaics. So the idea is to involve young people, young graduates, to train them on basic conservation techniques and give them the opportunity to apply that on the job on these sites, of course, under the supervision of conservation experts. The second approach is applying employment-intensive approaches. And this, I'm sure you will resonate with Mary. This is something that we are developing with ILO. And I think it's a fantastic idea. We try to provide short-term job opportunities for laborers, skilled and semi-skilled, train them on how to work on basic renovation works in sites, and give them the opportunity and build a cadre group of laborers which can do that also in other sites. We also work on improving the quality of the education, technical education for hospitalities. Is very much in line with what Heike also mentioned. We fully agree that we need to increase the quality. Labor forces have to be well qualified around touristic destinations. This other point is very specific, is a study, very comprehensive, very detailed, on hydrological and hydraulic issues. Basically, we studied the first time ever has been done, the Wadi Musa watershed to support the PDTRA, the Petra Authority, in preventing flash flood risks. Because you may know that in Petra, on a regular basis, there are flash floods which are devastating. So we supported them to avoid that. And the last point is also something to strengthen the safety of the site, which suffers from landslides risk occasionally. So there are a number of interventions. We are also working with the authority to address that. And this is the last bubble. Basically, I just mentioned here a couple of issues about the surveys done on the 1,121 sites that are currently on the UNESCO World Heritage list. 86% were closed or partially closed as of mid-May, and 90% of all world museums were closed. Same thing obviously happened in Jordan. The 5 World Heritage sites were closed, but they have reopened recently, so we are very happy about that. And while the 46 registered museums seems to be still closed. Now, a couple of other issues, I think Heike mentioned that During the lockdown, the virtual digitalization activity got increased, and this is for good. Today I received an invitation for an online virtual art exhibition inauguration. So we definitely support anything which is digital presence of museums and art activities. Some museums in Jordan have done that. They have gone with virtual. Even the Children's Museum has done some nice activities for children online. And I want to mention the Ministry of Culture initiative, My Passion, which is basically providing free art education online for young people, which I thought also was a very good initiative. And now here, let me advocate for culture as a source of resilience, as culture playing a major role in society. And if we have to imagine the world after, I hope we will all agree that culture has to play a central role in sustainable development and therefore in sustainable tourism. I want to elaborate a little bit on Build Back Better. This is a little bit our motto now, but I was happy to see on the Jordan Times today an article about it. So it has started spreading already. And you see, Heike, very much like what you were saying. For me, building back better means green, go for green jobs, green economy, more respect for environment. There is a lot that can be done. Inclusion, very much like including those stakeholders that have been excluded so far. And we can think of a number of groups at different stage. But we need to recognize the importance of safeguarding culture. Culture is our past, is our present. We need to transmit it to the future. So that's really critical. I want to mention the four T's. That is a formula of Her Excellency Madge Schweker, the Minister of Tourism and Antiquities. On the 10th of June, she participated in a summit, and she mentioned these four T's. Trust. We have to build trust that we are doing things safely and correctly. Transparency, we need to be open, transparent about processes. Technology, we need to be innovative and explore new technology that will help us to build back better. Training, we need to ensure that there is adequate training for those that need, so that no one is left behind. And then, and then I could not talk about sustainable without paying my respect to the guru of tourism, Dr. Taleb Rifai. And I could find a quote from his speech at the General Assembly already 6 years ago, in which he was stressing, emphasizing the critical importance of culture and tourism, and the fact that tourism provides opportunities to contribute to inclusive economic growth, social development and stability, and heritage preservation. So I really think it couldn't be said better than this. Thank you, Dr. Taleb. Now, sustainable tourism. Now, there are different definitions of sustainable tourism. I took this picture from a rapid review, a study that UNESCO and UNDP are doing together. And it gives me the opportunity to highlight some of the critical dimensions of sustainable tourism that I think are critical. Number one, we need to respect the heritage, the culture. We need to ensure we appreciate what we have and put it to the maximum value. Authenticity, that's also critical, because we don't want to have Walt Disneyland everywhere. We need to respect and appreciate the authenticity of the destination and have a commitment to preserve them. Again, local jobs, we need to have decent jobs, good jobs for the local community around the sustainable tourism. And the last one is the community. The community should not be passive beneficiaries. but should decide what type of tourism they want to have for their own communities. Now, so sustainable tourism products in Jordan are available only to a limited extent. Since we are advocating for that, I thought maybe I could highlight some opportunities that I see, and I'm sure actually these are already have already been mentioned by Heike and even and also by Mary. So we should continue to invest in a specific type of tourism which are more conducive to the new normal. So obviously all these SOPs that Heike mentioned, these have implications, or anything which is in the open air, anything which is adventure, anything which is meditation, anything which is sport tourism, filmmaking, as Mary mentioned. So these are definitely type of tourism that will start possibly before and can be enriched with a sustainable approach. Scaling up good practices. There are good practices in Jordan of sustainable tourism. I'm sure whoever is listening to us can mention several. So I think we should make an effort to actually expand them nationally. Digital transformation and digital transition and innovation have determined an increase in creation of cultural content. It's interesting to see how much young people or creative professional can do online and can create also virtually. Like virtual reality and augmented reality should be part of the experience. It should not be just an annex, but should be part of the experience. Of course, technological advances can go on, can be accelerated, like contactless payment, e-ticketing, e-booking, and so on. Carrying capacity of the World Heritage Sites, that's something very complex. UNESCO is committed to do that. It is important to determine how many tourists can be in every given time in any given place, because otherwise we start a negative impact on the cultural heritage as well. We should do more to make destinations and cultural heritage sites accessible to people with disabilities. This is part of our commitment to leave no one behind. And definitely we should try to green with some creativity the tourist experience. For example, I was thinking plastic-free Wadi Ram could be a way to, to brand the site. This is the framework that Mary was talking about. I will only say that the Secretary General launched a report a couple of months ago entitled Shared Responsibility, Global Solidarity, which is a bit the theme that his call vis-a-vis the member states. Now the process is that there is a UN framework responding to that call in each country, and the UN country team in Jordan is preparing that. It's going to be finalized very shortly. It's based on the 5 pillars, and I just want to say that our approach to sustainable tourism will be part of the pillar number 3 for economic response and recovery, which is linked to the Sustainable Development Goal 8, which has a target to promote policies and implement activities on sustainable development. And you can see the Sustainable Development box number 8 here behind me. Now, of course, in the whole framework, while working on that, we will also support the SDG 17 on partnership. And this is the closing. I thought to quote my big boss, the UN Secretary General. In fact, on the 9th of June, he issued a statement on tourism and very much addressed also to the UN World Tourism Organization, in which and is a message of hope and optimism. So I thought that's why I wanted to include it at the end. He said, tourism can be the platform for overcoming the pandemic, very much what both of you, Mary and Heike, just said. By bringing people together, tourism can promote solidarity and trust. I encourage all those involved in the tourism sector to explore how we can recover better through steps that advance sustainability, and build the resilience. So I thought this would capture very much many of the themes we collectively have talked about. So with this I conclude. Thanks a lot for the attention, and I give you back the floor, Mary. Thank you.
Costanza, thank you for an excellent presentation. You really provided us with a very broad overview of what is sustainable tourism and what we can do today in this post-corona era. We all know we are embarking on a new chapter. So we need to address the pre-existing targets that we wanted in the area of culture, but in a new environment. So how do we do that? So thank you so much for this presentation. I was very happy to hear what UNESCO is doing globally and focusing on data, something that I always love. It's time to look at what kind of new data we need to be collecting, but also on dialogue. This is a time where countries need to talk and have policy dialogue at a global level. This is not a time where we can close on ourselves and we think we can find our own solutions and address our own problems. So please, UNESCO, continue with these global dialogues. Because I think this is also tourism, culture, heritage, preservation is what brings people together and what brings understanding between different nations. So I'm very glad to see that you are continuing to work on your agenda to implement the commitments you had before the coronavirus while adding to it a whole new agenda. So chapeau, congratulations for all this hard work.
Thanks a lot.
So now, before we open the floor for discussion, I can see we have a few questions. As I told you, everybody, we'd love this to be as interactive as possible. I think I will turn to Omar because he told me we will have a couple of interventions. Omar?
Yes, Dr. Mary, thank you. We have with us His Excellency Dr. Taleb Rifai. I'm sure he has much valuable comments to add as well. And then we also have Dr. Michaela Prokop from the UNDP. So if I can ask Dr. Taleb first to maybe give us some of his insights, and then ask Dr. Michaela to follow up after that.
With pleasure, Omar, with pleasure. With pleasure, my dear. I enjoyed very much listening to all the ladies, the fine ladies there. Let me start by thanking Mary Kawar, a very good colleague that we've worked together for a long period of time. Mary, it's good to hear you. It's good to see you again. You're looking good.
Thank you so much, Taleb. I always love to interact with you.
Teslimi, Allah khalik. Constanza also, thank you so much for including me in your presentation. I don't think I'm not sure I deserve that. But having said this, now, sustainability is the name of the game. In Chinese, they say the word opportunity and the word crisis are the same word, believe it or not. These people know what they're talking about. There are tremendous opportunities that can come out of this crisis. One of which is to correct some of the chronic mistakes, some of the chronic downsides of tourism. Tourism, like a grand human activity, like any grand human activity, has a dark side to it, has a downside to it. And we need to use this opportunity to correct that. For example, we've been bypassing domestic tourism for a long period of time. If you look at America, United States, or Europe, 70% of tourism there is domestic tourism. In the developing world, we don't have that at all. We can't really assume that countries, nations would keep receiving foreigners from outside to enjoy their country when they're not enjoying it themselves. We must start by fulfilling first the ambitions and the desires of the people in the country first. And then we could be ready to receive the people from outside of the country. Now, this is not now only a necessity and a need because of the current situation, because international travel has stopped. So we have to depend on domestic tourism. It's a matter of principle to me. No country can be enjoyed by any foreigner. It's not enjoyed first by its own people. It's a matter of principle to me. So I know many people don't take domestic tourism too seriously. They think that tourism is only for non-people with blue eyes that come from outside. We treat them like coming from Mars. We treat them like gods on earth. This is not right. This is, when we talk about inclusiveness, it's part of inclusiveness. Because what we need to do is really make sure that the walls and the barriers between the visiting people and the local community are lower and lower. That's the only way to interact. That's the only way to get something good out of tourism. So I just wanted to highlight this issue because I think it was brought both by Heike and by Costanza. Now, having said this, of course, international tourism is important and will continue to be important, but it's not the time for it now. We still need to do much work before we start doing international tourism, because fear and concern are a very important factor now that we should overcome. We should become people more trusting. We've developed now a concept, Mary, I don't know if you're aware of it, called Corona Resilience Zone, CRZ. These are zones that are like bubbles. For example, Aqaba could be a Corona Resilience Zone. The Dead Sea hotels and resorts can be a Corona Resilience Zone. So you control everything that happens in that zone. You connect it with some destinations outside of Jordan. That's the only way you could start international tourism. Until that starts, I think we should concentrate on domestic tourism. I know Aouni is not very much enthusiastic about domestic tourism, but Aouni, believe me, I know that domestic tourism does not bring in hard currency, does not contribute to the balance of trade. It keeps facilities open and keeps shops going on. So I think we should all concentrate now on domestic tourism. Domestic tourism means we should think in a different way. We should retrain people. We should adjust our packages. I think government is also very serious about this. Just wanted to highlight these opportunities that are ahead of us before we go on. Thank you so much, Mary. Thank you, Costanza, and thank you, Heike.
Thank you,
You're
Dr.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Taleb. Please, Amar, go ahead.
Dr. Michaela Prokop from the UNDP, I know you have a few comments to share with us as well, so please.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. As Constanza mentioned already, we partnered on a small research exercise on making a case for investing in sustainable tourism, and we embarked on that journey prior to the onset of the COVID-19 crisis. And but then we thought that actually, as the previous speaker also mentioned, the crisis may actually be an opportunity to revisit some of the trends and perhaps add to the 4 T's that the current Minister of Tourism mentioned, a 5th T for transformation, or looking at the recovering better in terms of monitoring or looking at the impact, not only in terms of number of tourists that visit Jordans and resuming the number of tourists, but also what type of tourists, what are the community linkages, what kind of jobs are created for the communities, and to tap also in the changing sort of consumer behavior that is looking for different types of experience. So that's kind of, we'd be happy to share the report, and we would be really interested in a discussion on, is that an opportunity for Jordan to tap into new types of tourisms, new tourists or different type of tourists coming to Jordan, and for private sector also to invest in such ventures, and for government to incentivize that and also monitor, perhaps as part of its sort of monitoring the tourism sector's impact on the economy, a different type of impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michaela. And Dr. Mary, I think we can proceed to the questions if you like.
Okay. All right. Interestingly enough, we have a question on domestic tourism. And I think either Costanza or Heike can answer. You can let me know. So from Bashir, from JTA, the question is, it is great that we are talking about capacity building and training. And even with the new measures, MOTA and government proposed are not at all a bailout for the sector. No, sorry. MOTA and government proposed are not at all a bailout for the sector. Most of the establishments in this sector will perish. So how can we first stop the bleeding? Local tourism is not the solution. That's why I love dialogue, especially for the investments in Amman and Petra. So who would like to take this question, Heike or Costanza?
I'm happy to have a first shot, Mary.
Please.
I think, of course, His Excellency Taleb Rifai would also agree that domestic tourism is not the full answer to the tourism challenge in Jordan, but it's a critical component and something that can happen right now. So it's also about timing. So I think indeed the tourism industry is suffering tremendously in Jordan and will need additional support over and beyond domestic tourism. But I think we also need to see what we can do right now. And what we can do right now is incentivizing domestic tourism, designing training and projects for a platform for the for international tourism to resume. I think everyone needs to pull together. I know I've seen a number of the questions around, the lost season this year, the financial strain on many companies, loss of jobs, and we don't want to diminish these concerns. These concerns are real. And even though, of course, Mary has highlighted what the government has done, we also all agree that this is not enough. EBRD's contribution maybe is also a small one, but we are working with all the banks that are lending to the SMEs and are in final discussions on preparing additional liquidity to Jordan through local banks to help small and medium enterprises across the sector. I think all of these things have to come together, but I also want to be realistic. I think we will not be able to save all the jobs in the tourism sector, and we will not be able to save all the companies in the tourism sector. So I think, yes, I think it's important to highlight to all the financing institutions to increase financial opportunities, liquidity for the government to help particularly on the small and medium enterprises and the day laborers, all of the people that have no social security contributions to be able to survive. But then I think we need to prepare as best as we can. And I do agree that domestic tourism right now is an important component, but I think we also need to prepare for a high value add, green and inclusive holistic tourism for Jordan to come. So I know it's not maybe the answer that Bashir that you wanted to hear, but I fear there will be a fallout, and we can try to do as best as possible what we can do right now. But I think it's also important, yes, to recognize that there will be a fallout that we may not be fully able to address, even if we all try our best together. But I don't know if Constanza wants to add anything.
You're saying in a way, there's a lot here about a shared responsibility. There's so much the government can do. There's so much that small enterprises can do. There's so much that hotel owners or different parts of the ecosystem can do. And at the end, it's a shared responsibility and shared concerns. Costanza, do you have anything to add?
Thank you. After the view of the banker, not much, but but I fully agree. No, from my side, it's good to have a dialogue. I fully agree. Actually, probably we should have incentivized domestic tourism even before. In the sense, what is showing now, the crisis has showed us that the model we were working by is actually very vulnerable. Because one virus has been sufficient to make the sector have huge financial consequences. So that's why I think we need to reimagine the future. We need to think how we can create job opportunities without mass tourism, without mass investments. We have to scale down our focus, and there is a lot that can be given in terms of art and cultural beauties in Jordan. So this is where we have to invest. It's going to be a different type of investment. But again, I don't think, having another Disneyland somewhere, in Jordan will attract tourists. Tourists will be much more responsible now, will want to have a more genuine and authentic experience. And to do that, Jordanian stakeholders have to prepare. There is plenty, but they need to prepare.
Thank you so much, Constanza. So, colleagues, let us move to the next question, and it is from Muna Nazal. And she says, indeed, we are at a standstill, and we have written off 2020. Though my thought, a silver lining can be an opportunity to incorporate and educate our Jordanian youth via the Ministry of Education on the importance of cultural tourism, ecotourism, UNESCO sites, and enhance tourism in their education and courses. We are at baseline in tourism, and we have the time to educate our future generation and create ambassadors of Jordans for tourism. What do you say, colleagues? I think this is mostly Constanza.
Yeah, if I say this is a fantastic idea. And I have to say, in the past, absolutely, I have my full support goes to this type of collaboration with the Ministry of Education. We have tried in the past, we have provided modules for what we call cultural heritage education, which could be accommodated within schools among the extra curriculum activities. So definitely there is a huge need to educate as part of the training, part of the capacity development that we're talking about, and it will certainly increase the appreciation of how important culture and cultural tourism is. So definitely this, I would encourage anybody to go for it.
Yeah. Okay, these are the two questions. I think I saw the rest are comments. Maybe I can read some of them. From Muhammad Qasim to everyone. He says, one of the activities we are working on in the Sector Skills Council is to find opportunities in other sectors, such as the health sectors, and relocate skilled employees in the tourism sector where there are demand for skilled employees. This can be done with short-term training and programs. So the idea here is where there is a labor surplus, when some people are losing jobs, that we can provide short-term training for the areas that we need more training. I will speak and I will read the comments, Constanza and Heike, and if you would like to comment on any of them, kindly let me know. But at the end, I will give you some concluding remarks. So from Karim Mubarak is, while I agree domestic tourism is important, it doesn't make sense to subsidize domestic tourism when those funds could be redirected to fund SMEs, local tour operators, to pay staff salaries. I think this is a very important proposition. Would any of you like to comment on this one?
Yeah, I can comment on that if you allow me.
Please.
Yeah. The government has set a budget of 10 million JDs for the local domestic tourism, whereas our minister stated yesterday that they spent 3 million. In that case, we have a surplus of 7 million, presumably, that should be spent on supporting our major issues now are the labor and sustainability of our staff. And what they did, the Social Security, is that they are lending us money until the end of the year that should be paid beyond that, 21, 22, which is a loan at 3%. This is not the solution we were seeking. We were expecting, similar to the guides and others, that we get some sort of subsidy to maintain our major issue, the staff sustainability, because the defense law doesn't allow you to move in any direction. It's a case of paralysis now. We are totally paralyzed. We cannot restructure, we cannot terminate, we cannot You cannot do anything now, even if you don't need the staff, because there are certain airlines that stopped coming and you have staff waiting for them. You cannot do much. So the least they could have done is supported the sector somehow, rather than just giving them loans, which is not the case. We need now. Loans are not, how can you pay the loan if you're sitting down and having no income? So this is a burden on the industry, rather than just supporting the domestic tourism by these millions and just hoping that this support will generate business for the 30 tour operators or so that have embarked on taking over these tours. So that's a serious issue for us at present time. All the solutions that has been set yesterday and the day before were not real solutions. Bank guarantees to be subsidized by bonds from the Ministry of Justice is not a solution. It's still, again, it's a 6-month thing that you have to recuperate by January next year. I don't see that the government has done much actually to support us per se. That the serious problems that we're suffering, it was only cosmetic solutions, I think, which was not what we expected. I don't want to say further than this because this meeting is to do with other issues, but just in passing, I wanted just to relay that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Auni. I certainly think you have a point of view. We have also a question from Susie Hatog. Really, there's too many friends in this webinar today. It has been an absolute delight. So hello, Susie. Littering in cultural heritage and natural maybe locations is impacting Jordanian image, economy, and environment. What can EBRD and UNESCO do to address this matter in the context of their common agenda for green, inclusive, and technology? I think this is a fantastic question. It is an issue that is on the minds of everyone, which is the problem of littering. I mean, we can talk about innovation, technology, what have you, but then it comes down to something as simple as what do we do about littering? So who wants to start?
I'm happy to start. I fully agree that I think, and thank you, Susie, for a really important comment, because sometimes we lose, the focus on some of these basic concerns. And I think, what can EBRD do? Maybe I talk a little bit about that. I think what we do is we work also with municipalities in ways of how to better organize waste management, how to do greener waste management, and then ultimately how to turn the waste ideally into energy. So what we have done that with the Greater Amman municipality, where we've worked really quite closely with upgrading transfer stations for the waste, and then ultimately one of the waste sites, how to better cover it so that also some of it is waste that is distributed by the wind, how to cover the waste site, and then how to extract the waste and make energy of it. We have now just actually a month ago started to engage also with the Petra municipality and see if some of these ideas of more effective waste collection, waste management, and from a municipal side. So that's not all about littering, but that's, of course, once it is littered, how to better collect the waste, how to better sort the waste, and how to eventually be able to generate potentially energy out of that waste. So that's one step that we are approaching, is helping the municipalities and identifying concepts of better waste collection. So that's just, I agree, that's just one area, but I think maybe the one area where EBRD can help the municipalities to design, structure, and finance with private companies better waste collection, recycling, waste management, and waste to energy. So I think that maybe is my part of the answer.
Thank you, Heike. Constanza, do you have anything to add on this?
I'm glad that Heike started first, because I would like to be a little bit more provocative, and I would say, what the civil society can do about it? You know, I think it's everybody's responsibility, and I think it goes down to education. We need to educate ourselves and our friends and colleagues to not to litter. I mean, to respect. This is part of the respect of to nature, part of the respect to cultural heritage sites. And let me mention an initiative that the chairman has launched last year, if I remember correctly, where they mobilized something like 1 million volunteers to collect waste, but it is an individual responsibility. So UNESCO can only support initiatives, but I think it's a national issue, and I think some civil society organization could take it on board, and certainly they would receive support from other international organizations. Over to you.
Yeah, it is a big issue in Jordan, I think. Okay, we have also a comment from Raoul Bauzain. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Two of the most important things for SMEs at the moment are funding and information provision. It is still completely unknown when borders will open and what the procedures will be like. Of course, companies can start preparing now, but with such a great lack of information, it will be very complicated for many SMEs to properly prepare. It is a comment, his point of view. If Constanza and Heike would like to address it, please let me know.
Maybe just a very quick comment. We are working very closely with SMEs, and I think know-how and knowledge is very critical. So I just wanted to say, yes, I think we, as EBRD, we have an Advice for Small Business program, and we've now launched a knowledge platform, know-how, across many sectors that's available online, and that is also helping on some of the planning aspects in terms of financial management of SMEs, digital marketing. But I agree, in addition to, as an SME, how to best prepare your know-how, it is important to get predictable guidance from also the government. So again, it's a sort of a partnership and shareholding. And I know many dimensions are going into the decision of when to open an airport, but I agree communication is critical, and not just for SMEs, also for individuals to plan. And I think there maybe we are looking forward to more forward-looking guidance also from the government. I mean, I'm trying to move house since mid-March. Joking aside, I think there is a lot of preparation that SMEs can do, and where organizations like EBRD and also UNESCO can help for know-how and preparedness. But then I think indeed governments need to make sure that as much information as they have, and some of this now, of course, very complex, but would help SMEs to prepare.
Okay, thank you, Heike. Colleagues, we suddenly got a lot of comments and questions. Maybe I will try and read them all and group them, and then see what Heike and Constanza would like to pick up from those, okay? So from Karim Mubarak, we have loans would be maybe important to grow a market, to launch a new product, but not to pay salaries. I think that's a fair comment. Bassam Twal, I believe domestic tourism is not creating a cultural change, and it will be sustainable. And it will not be probably sustainable. Why paid by government? This is a false economy. Well, it is really an encouragement maybe. From Abdullah Abu Rumman, he says, I believe that effective socioeconomic interventions are vitally needed at this time in post-COVID phase. I totally agree. However, proper and informed intervention come only of solid information and data that are derived from targeted research. I believe that our sector domestically still suffers a huge lack of research-based data that can guide interventions and could also influence current priorities. So my question, do we in Jordan have the data, updated data, that we have to re-identify the roots of the issues? And if so, what are our priorities and needed interventions, or needs for more targeted research, or whether the need for more targeted research is needed? Do you have any comments, colleagues? I will continue. So Sam Dababne, without knowing a specific date for opening our borders and airport, we can't plan anything for short term. If we didn't announce it, the opening of Jordan as it then wouldn't be remembered as is used to be. Okay, and the last one valuable comment from Abdullah on the chat, and I think it is time that we wrap things up. Okay, okay. Fine. So I would like to allow Heike and Constanza 2 minutes conclusion, if you would like, before we wrap up this this very rich discussion.
Thank you so much, Mary, for an exceptionally exciting and interesting and insightful and well-moderated webinar. I think we could all go on much longer, but of course our lives are now in successions of webinars and Zooms, so all good things have to end. But I think what I very much enjoyed is the focus on inclusion and green. So how we can reset and refocus together, and what we can do right now, but also what needs to be done in the medium term by the different stakeholders. So more availability of financing, yes, more training across health, but also and sanitation, but also cultural training. Now is the moment, but also what needs to be done from a government perspective in terms of making these policies predictable so that small and medium enterprises, which are the backbone of the tourism industry in Jordan, will really have a chance to survive this crisis, thrive, reset, and be part of the resilience platform for tourism to be launched on going forward. So thank you so much for having me.
I also join Heike in thanking Mary for the fantastic moderating job. Thank you, Mary. You have been really an ally. And I wish to thank the chairman and Omar. They have been wonderful organizers. Thank you for hosting me. I've learned a lot, so I thank also from the discussion and the debates. One thing that I take away with me is that we all need to do our bit. In the sense, there is no solution. As Heike said, unfortunately, many enterprises will not survive the crisis here in Jordan and everywhere in the world. So is a shared impact, and everybody will have to be more proactive, more creative, and try to join forces. We need a collective effort. This is what the Secretary General will say. We need really to collaborate much more closely together. Otherwise, the resources will be limited. But thank you again. And let's hope in a better sustainable tourism for Jordan in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Dr. Mary, you're on mute.
Thank you, Constanza and Heike, and all the friends and colleagues in this webinar. I really enjoyed it. I've taken a lot with me. Mostly, we need the right policies right now. We need the right partnerships right now, and we need to do what we need. Implement the old agenda, but also think forward of new ways of doing things, because this is not business as usual anymore in this sector, and it's going to be facing a lot of challenges. So let me thank everyone here, and thank especially JETOA for giving me this opportunity. And I hand over to Omar for any conclusions. Thanks a lot, and a nice afternoon, everyone.
Thank you very much for your efforts. I will leave it with our chairman, Mr. Auni Qawar.
Just to wrap up, thank you very much, everyone. A short word saying that the immediate plan will be, we have to work in a transitional form through the domestic tourism in parallel, preparing for the post-corona period in terms of virtual marketing, with the JTB, with the tour operators, working virtually hand in hand. On one side, domestic tourism, it will be an experience for the hotels to get used to the new protocols, the new social distancing and all this new terminologies that came after the pandemic. So starting with Aqaba Airport, starting with Aqaba Hotel, I think will be a good experiment for all of us. Once the Jordan opens, then we at least know how to deal with the post-corona customers coming from abroad. It's a new phase that we have to face, similar to what happened post September 11th, when the whole life of travel has changed, and we adapted to that then. So let's hope we'll open up maybe July, August, whenever we're ready, and in a new style and with open arms. And all the best to you, and thank you very much for sharing our webinar and being with us, having all this exchange of information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kawak.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
We'll see you in the next one, hopefully.
Thank you.
Take care.